All right, awesome. So, welcome. As most of you will have noticed, I am not Nancy. Nancy is traveling and is in Colorado. So, I'll be covering for her tonight. Uh, I'm sorry? Hopefully not. All right. So, tonight, uh, welcome to our, what is this, August chapter meeting here at the Georgetown Parks and Rec Community Room. Uh, for those of you that are online, we'll be monitoring the chat. So please let us know if you're not able to hear me or our speaker at any time. Um, so we're kind of doing double duty. I've got screens everywhere right now. So we'll get into it. Our upcoming programs next month will be Ashley Landry, who's talking about the Mocan Prairie, which is going to be a really interesting one. And then October, TJ Gilmore, who's the mayor of Louisville, Texas, kind of up in the Dallas area. Some of you might have seen his presentation at some of the other chapter meetings or at the symposium in the spring. So very good program there that they have going. November, Michael Eason. Okay, yeah. We'll be doing rare plants and conservation projects. Sorry about that little typo there. And then December will be our holiday party. And if you have ideas for other speakers, down at the bottom, reach out to Susie Hickman. You can get to her through the website, nips.wilco.com. So we're planning for next year, and we'll start filling those in as we go. All right, and then just as a reminder, if you are attending online, be sure to mute your mic. I thought I heard the projector say something. So a big thank you to all of the Wilco volunteers who participated in the Good Water Master Naturalist chapter event, which was Saturday, the 24th, from the Balconies to Backyards program. I was kind of doing the same thing that, running the online portion, but I did get to watch some of the presentations and actually absorb the information rather than making sure nothing was going wrong technically. And it was super awesome. And the keynote speaker was fantastic. So if you didn't get a chance to catch Brad, make sure you kind of keep an eye on when he has other events going on online and catch him. He was a really good speaker. All right, upcoming field trips. We have the 12th Hidden Springs Plant Survey coming up on September 7th. Then Palmetto State Park coming up in October 19th. I need to get that one on my calendar. I'm kind of excited about that one. If you've never been, it's a really unique place, especially for Central Texas. Then we'll be doing another tree walk out at Old Settlers Park in the fall, so November 16th. November, yeah. And then River Ranch County Park, we'll have a field trip on December 1st. And then we always do one more walk on New Year's Day, and we haven't really talked about that yet, but I'm sure.
I have a question mark, so if you say yes, we're fine.
Okay, yeah. I'll double check my calendar, but yeah, we'll do it. Okay. So calling all you wacky weeders, we've got a volunteer project coming up Saturday, August 24th. You notice it's 7 a.m. because we're now in the 100-degree days out in Hutto at the Peterson Community Garden. So bring a hat, water, gardening tools, and perhaps a string trimmer if you have one that is portable enough. So we're going to kind of clean up and do some work out there. Okay. The NIPSOT Wilco Fall Plant Sale will be in person on Saturday, November 2nd. So save that date for your calendar from 10:30 till 2 p.m. And I thought the new location was kind of stubbing us out, but it should be new location with little exclamation points around it at Southwest Williamson County Regional Park. So there are those pavilions. We'll have more details and directions and all that sort of stuff on the website. So if you are not getting our blog announcements, be sure to sign up for those, because as we get closer to the plant sale, we'll start, making sure that information comes out, and you want to get it as soon as you can. All right, and then next is a congratulations to Ashley Landry for winning the 2024 Nancy Benedict Memorial Award from the Native Plant Society. Ashley is in the back there. This award is given to an individual for an act of conservation or public service in the field of Texas native plants. And of course, all of the work wonderful work that Ashley has done for the Native Plant Rescue Project. So thank you, Ashley. All right. Now, for those of you that are in person, we do have some free plants to give away. Those free plants are going to be dwarf prairie coneflower, which came from a plant rescue. So thank you again, Ashley. And then fall aster and Blackfoot daisy. So my fall asters are getting close to start budding, but not quite there yet. But those are beautiful if you haven't seen them in person. And for me, this one I've tried to plant a couple of times now. Apparently it is delicious to rabbits. So the next time I try it, I'm going to have to put it in a cage. They find it and then chomp, 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 chomp. And deer probably love it too. Right? And then Blackfoot daisy are fantastic. If you ever want to see these, go out to Dosagen Ranch. There are some beautiful fields of it out there. I love the little perfect flowers. They're so nice. And then what I learned for identification on this one is flip it over, and on the back, the little petals have little dirty feet. So that's how you can remember Blackfoot. So there's like little spots on the back, little stripes. Okay. And then also an in-person attendee tonight will win this book, The Plants of Central Texas Wetlands, which was probably recommended by our speaker.
That covers Paul Manuel State Park, so.
Fantastic. All right, and just a little bit of information about how you can find us. All of our places. So the website, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Our chapter meetings, which occur the second Thursday of each month, but do note where the location is, and you can always check that location on our blog, on our website. We do tend to bounce around a little bit, both sometimes because we want to and sometimes because we have to. But the next time we go to Georgetown Public Library, hopefully we'll see new carpet. So tonight, our speaker is Casey, and Casey Williams is an aquatic ecologist and plant ecologist for a private consulting firm. It's been involved with aquatic plant biology, conservation, and restoration since graduate school at Texas State University, where he mapped and studied the aquatic plants of the San Marcos and Comal Springs. Currently resides in San Marcos, Texas, spends his free time kayaking, hiking, and traveling to find, you guessed it, more aquatic plants. So, Casey, I will hand this over to you. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you for having me. Thank you for showing up. I'm always a little nervous when I give an aquatic plant class because they're so unfamiliar to people. I never know if people are going to be interested or show up or not show up. But you all showed up, so great. Thank you. So I just wanted to go ahead and say that I fulfilled a personal dream of mine, which is giving the first annual Texas Aquatic Plant Workshop. We did that at the Meadow Center at Spring Lake in San Marcos 3 weeks ago. Well attended. We had 20 attendees. We took a glass bottom boat ride around Spring Lake. We had a lab practical on plants. They had a test. Some of them passed, some of them did not. But anyway, it was a great time. So I'm trying to put out the word for next year. Probably will be in May or June because July is a little bit hot. So you'll keep an eye on that through Native Plant Society, Master Naturalist, because I want those people to be really involved. Maybe later we'll start getting into the professional ecologists, but I want the naturalist and the Native Plant Society members first. Moving on, so poll the audience. So like I said, most aquatic plants are unfamiliar with a lot of people. You generally don't have them in your yard or garden. So how many of you have a water garden or a stream or a spring on your property? Okay, great. you not hear me okay? Okay. Great. So y'all are ahead of the curve. You can yell out. What comes to mind when you think an aquatic plant? Yep. So I get hydrilla, water lettuce. I get all the invasives because that's what most people are familiar with. Button bush is a good one. Cattails, yeah. So those are all the nuisance plants. And so those are the plants that the state of Texas spends lots and lots of money getting rid of. But our native plants aren't really appreciated. So I'm here to bring you the good gospel of Texas native aquatic plants. Anybody yell out a function of an aquatic plant? Yes. Water filtration, oxygenation, lowering turbidity, all those cool things. Habitat, nursery habitat for fish. So again, when we think about native Texas plants, aquatic plants are probably not in anyone's register. We think of Chihuahuan desert plants, and we think of beautiful bluebonnets, and looking at the coast and piney woods and all that. But we don't really think about what lives in our rivers and streams and springs. We maybe see them, but a lot of times people just dismiss them. Even the greatest botanists dismiss our native aquatic plants. Lindheimer, the father of Texas botany, collected maybe half a dozen aquatic plants, and he lived on the Comal River. So, but really, Texas has a lot of habitat for aquatic plants. We're quite diverse, just like we are diverse with our terrestrial plants, because we have so many ecoregions. The same goes for aquatics. 3,700 named streams, 80,000 miles of flowing water, thousands of springs. Some of those probably don't exist anymore, but they were there historically. And then, and we have lots of man-made reservoirs and ponds and retention ponds. Every time you drive through a new development in Austin, you'll probably see a retention pond, and those offer habitat. We have perennial creeks. A lot of people forget about our oxbow lakes. A lot of people think that Caddo Lake is our only native lake. Very wrong. We have tons of natural lakes in Texas. Stock ponds, reservoirs, so lots of habitat. So within our ecoregions, I did not. Oh no. Uh-oh. Now we're really getting lost here. Let's see. Okay, forget y'all saw all that. All right, so this is supposed to be an active slide. I don't know if it'll play. Apparently not. So anyway, within our natural regions, this is supposed to pop up as our piney woods, East Texas swamps and marshes. This should pop up as, we'll do it with the Dan. This should pop up as our coastal wetlands, which we have thousands of miles of continuous wetlands in Texas along the coast. Oh, I need to click on it.
Maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know where it's. Maybe I took it off. I don't know.
Sometimes there's a little play button that shows up when you hover on it.
It might have just gone. Okay. Anyway, our hill country springs and streams. The Comal, San Marcos, Barton Springs. We have springs right here, right out the door here. Beautiful clear water. You get into West Texas, you get into the Cienegas, some of our desert springs, arroyos. Those have quite abundant and diverse aquatic plant communities. And then in the Panhandle, what's in the Panhandle? Yep. No, what do that? Yeah. Playa Lakes. Yeah, so Playa Lakes, and a lot of people dismiss those. Those are great aquatic plant communities. So, and then those are just a few. There's tons of other. You have ephemeral ponds, the vernal pools at the top of Enchanted Rock. Those have unique plant communities that are very rare. Okay, we've already seen that. Next slide. So the great thing about aquatic plants, as y'all have probably learned in your landscaping class or native plant classes, that you should garden to your ecoregion. Native plants need to choose what lives in your ecoregion in order to do your landscape. Restoration is the same. But aquatic plants are pretty different. They have a very wide distribution regardless of the ecotype. So like you can go and out to Big Bend and find cardinal flower, and then you can immediately get in your car and drive to Caddo Lake and find cardinal flower, same species. There's not very many terrestrial plants that you're going to find in Caddo Lake and Big Bends. But your aquatics, you can find quite a few species. Ludwigia repens is another one. You can find it right out the door. Again, you can go to Big Bend, hike up into the Chisos, and you'll find Ludwigia up in the Chisos. Cabamba is one that really is an eastern U.S. species. You'll find it more commonly in eastern Texas, but you go to San Felipe Springs out in Del Rio, and it's one of the dominant aquatic plants out there. So it has a very wide range. So there's a theme going on here. Oh, sting it. Hitting the wrong button. But then you get to some of our native plants, our endemic plants that are very limited in their distribution. Anybody know what this distribution would be for what plant?
Texas wild rice.
Yes, Texas wild rice. So Texas wild rice is one of our two federally listed aquatic plants in Texas. Only lives in the upper 2 miles of San Marcos Springs. So this is Texas wild rice right here on the right, and you can notice the. So it's important to notice with Texas wild rice is how it's growing underneath the water. It's very rare for a grass to grow completely submerged. So Texas wild rice is only one of 3 or 4 species of wild rice. All of its kinfolk live emergent. Texas wild rice is the only species of wild rice that grows completely submerged, completely unique habitat on the upper stretches of San Marcos. So our other federally listed plant, which no one has heard of, no one has seen in 20 years, I've come close to seeing a hybrid of it recently in the Davis Mountains, but it's a little aguaja pondweed, aguaja. So this is a little pondweed related to the pondweed you'll see over here on the table, but it's completely foliar, very thin strap leaves. Lives at 6,000 to 7,000 feet elevation up in the Davis Mountains in 1 or 2 or 3 canyons. Hasn't been in there. They did a study on it 20 years ago. Nobody's bothered to go back since. So these are our examples of aquatic plants that they have speciated. They have become their own species in a very select localized area. So some of our habitats, we're not going to go through a lot of habitat because we don't have time. There's dozens, but one of the main ones, if you go to Barton Springs, San Marcos Springs, Comal Springs, San Felipe Springs, you go to Belmarais, which is San Solomon Springs, all of those have their own unique aquatic, in some ways, unique aquatic plant communities. Those are biodiversity hotspots. Not only do they have unique aquatic plant communities, but they have unique fish and invertebrate species as well. And so you have this very localized little ecosystem going on in Texas Springs. San Marcos is outside of Florida. San Marcos River is one of the most diverse hotspots for aquatic plants in the United States. Definitely, I would say definitely west of the Mississippi. It doesn't get much more diverse. I can't think of any other spring west of the Mississippi that is as diverse in aquatic plant species as the San Marcos. You can get up to 25, 30 species of aquatic plants in the San Marcos. This is one of my thesis maps, when I mapped for my thesis. Each color is a different aquatic plant species. Mind you, some of those are non-native, and some of those have now been removed and replanted with other native species. So very diverse habitat and communities in our Texas Springs. This is the underwater section in Spring Lake. You'll see the green stuff here is milfoil, 2-leaf milfoil. That's 2-leaf milfoil. You'll see it on the table over here. And then you've got some nice hornwort, Ceratophyllum demersum, which is a submerged plant. Doesn't root, just kind of floats around. It'll attach to other plants. No stem, it has no roots, just stems and leaves. One of our earliest flowering plants dates back to 16 to 20 million years ago. So anyway, spring, Texas spring, super diverse, clear water, lots of sunlight. So plenty of good things for habitat. Our East Texas marshes and swamps. How many of you have been to Watson Nature Preserve or Plant Preserve? Now's the time to go. You will see all of these species right here at Watson. So Chapman's orchid, woolly grass, water spider orchid, Nature's river. You won't see Nature's river mallow at Watson, sorry. But these are all East Texas plants. They pretty much stop once you get east of the west of the Trinity River Basin. You won't see them anymore, but super diverse. Gulf coastal marshes. Gulf coastal marshes again ranges thousands of miles, hundreds, maybe 1,000 miles if you mapped it. I don't know how long our Texas coastline is. You'll see wolfberry, spartina, our aquatic succulents. A lot of people don't understand that we have succulents that are also aquatics. That is kind of plays with your mind a little bit, but it's true. And then American crinum, which is a plant I'm really working on right now. Collected seed, and I have some of my first ones blooming, so super happy. So rivers, again, we have, 3,700 named streams in Texas, so lots of habitat for riverine plants that kind of like backwater areas of rivers, oxbows. This is a section of the Nueces River west of Uvalde. Does that look at all like west of Uvalde? This is Soldier Springs. Before a major flood. It doesn't look like that right now. And this is Nymphoides humboldtiana. So this is a plant that it's native to Mexico. It was thought to be a non-native species growing at this spring. We did genetics work, and we found that it's actually just a Mexican species that has now moved into North America. So this was the first record of Nymphoides humboldtiana in the United States, growing in this little spring west of Uvalde. Reservoirs. So because Texas has so many reservoirs, we have the hydrilla problem. We have a lot of bass fishermen that want habitat after TPWD has treated the hydrilla and other nuisance aquatic plants. We're getting this surge in aquatic restoration in our reservoirs. So we're getting a lot of native water authorities, river controlling districts that are wanting to plant native plants in the reservoir to help combat hydrilla, or at least add habitat back once hydrilla and other non-natives have been removed. So a perfect idea of making aquatic habitat for native Texas plants and conserving native Texas plants. So with all that being said, really, how long are we going to have plants, our native aquatics? It is not looking great, although we're always hopeful. You go to Michael Eason's talk, you'll hear him say that we're losing 600 acres of Texas habitat per day. Very few of the aquatic habitats are at all protected. So those habitats are not conserved. They're not conserved federally. They're not conserved at the state level. And so they can be drained. They can be overpumped. They can be filled in. They can be herbicided. So our aquatic plants are not conserved well at all. So we lost 1/2 of our native wetlands. We're in a major drought right now. So there are spots that I normally go and collect aquatic plants that are completely dry. Believe it or not, Texas aquatic plants are drought adapted, but as these droughts persist, those adaptations can only last so long. Weather patterns are changing, and we're just getting water diverted to other uses outside of the habitat. So there are about 3 species of aquatic plants that I have followed and done research on that are supposedly common. If you look on Bonap or Torch or any of these, look for the vouchers. They have been well collected over the years. But you go to those spots now and they don't exist. And they haven't probably existed there in 20 or 30 years because the hydrology of a lot of these habitats has changed. Uh, the water chemistry has changed. So a lot of these aquatic plants are blinking out before anybody really realizes that they're disappearing. So what is ecology? So that's what I'm really interested in. I'm not a botanist. I'm not really a taxonomist. I act like I'm a botanist sometimes. Definitely not a taxonomist, but I definitely am an ecologist. So I came into the aquatic plant realm from fisheries biology. That's what I wanted to do, was fisheries management. Realized I wasn't really making jobs. And so I decided, well, I'll just add water, and I already like native plants, so I'll just add water and plants and get aquatic plants and start doing ecology. So ecology is really the interaction between the structure of said aquatic plant and their function, what they provide to the habitat. And so you have this nice little pond. This is, if you go to Berry Springs right down the road, I think this is kind of a little representation of that. You have the plants providing habitat to the bugs and the fish and the birds eating those fish. You have the macroinvertebrates down here. The macroinvertebrates burrowing in the soil around the roots of the plants, and those provide food for birds and fish as well. And so what these plants are doing is they are a link between the atmosphere and the water column and the soil. And so the soil in the bottom of the pond is completely blocked off from atmospheric interaction. That's when you get anoxia and hypoxia and fish kills. And what aquatic plants do is they are basically straws, and they're pumping oxygen and carbon dioxide into the soil. Carbon dioxide and oxygen are leaving and going back into the atmosphere. And so that is really the major function of aquatic plants in an ecosystem. I'm doing this. Yay. So the thing about aquatic plants that we don't really have to think about with terrestrial plants is we have to think about, they have two growing mediums. They have the soil growing medium and the water growing medium. And so with the terrestrial plants, we don't really have to worry about the pH of the air. We don't have to worry about wind. We don't have to worry about, sometimes we have to worry about terrestrial plants getting too much sunlight or not enough. We don't have to worry about terrestrial plants getting enough CO2 and releasing oxygen. But when you have plants that are living in water, especially those that live underwater, they are completely blocked off from atmosphere a lot of times. And so they're living in a much denser growing medium other than just the soil. And so with aquatic plant communities, you have to worry about how fast the water is moving. You have to worry about, is the water clear enough for them to grow so they can get enough sunlight for photosynthesis? You have to worry about the amount of carbon dioxide dissolved in the water. If there's not enough carbon dioxide dissolved in the water, the plants cannot undergo photosynthesis. And so you see a lot of plants trying to get around this with some other mechanisms to complete photosynthesis, like using bicarbonate in the water. If plants are growing too deep, they'll get shaded out, competition by other plants. And so when you deal with aquatic plant ecology, it's a much more complicated process than when you're looking at just terrestrial plants and their communities. So what do plants do? Well, we pointed out that they clean and filter water. That's called phytoremediation. I was just working on a giant wetland project where we were putting in plants for boiler water, and the boiler water is going to come through the wetland, and the plants were going to uptake all of the solids, so that the water would be cleaner when it went back to the plant, so they wouldn't have to filter it. It uses so much energy to filter, mechanical energy to filter the water. So that's called phytoremediation, using plants as a tool to filter water. When you see our wastewater treatment plants releasing water into the creeks and rivers, that's generally what they're hoping happens in a river and a creek is that our wastewater encounters aquatic plants enough that the plants uptake nutrients, but when you're destroying your aquatic plant habitat, that's becoming more and more of a problem. So the other thing that aquatic plants are really good at is regulating water temperature. If you've ever been in a lake or something swimming and you swim underneath a colony of aquatic plants, or you just have a little pond, you put your hand at the lower end of the pond and you have plants, vastly different water temperatures. Provide habitat nursery for aquatic organisms. I think this is the one that people are most familiar with aquatic plants doing, and stabilizing shorelines and river pond bottoms. So what is an aquatic plant? It is complicated. They're polyphyletic, which means you have aquatic plants or range from trees to shrubs, forbs, grasses, annuals. You have a wide variety of families and divisions that have aquatic plant members, and so it's really hard to aquatic plants are very hard to classify. They're very hard to group because there's always exceptions, and so in a way we like to narrow them down to these three things. They have an adaptation to grow in saturated and or anoxic soil. As I said, the straw mechanism where they're pulling atmospheric gases and putting it into the water column or into the soil. That's their adaptation to a saturated system. They need water at some point in their life cycle to complete some part of their life cycle. With that being said, there are plenty of aquatic plants that live in Texas that are drought tolerant and can remain drought tolerant, remain dormant for decades. Water lilies are one. And then we'll go into, and then obviously they need water, but they don't always need water all the time. So like I said, classification and identification of aquatic plants is numerous and complicated. So how a lot of people like to kind of simplify it, I guess, is where the aquatic plant lives in the habitat. So if you have a pond, you read a pond book, you'll say, oh, you plant these in emergent and these in shallow water, and these are oxygenators, floating plants. So this is kind of your typical pond water garden scenario on how you would classify plants by their niche or niche. As an ecologist, you kind of like to classify them, as I said, ecology is structure plus function. So you care about the structure of the plant, whether they're floating leaved and rooted at the bottom, whether they're just floating like the little azolla here that just float on the surface. You have your stemmed plants, your caulescent plants, and you have your non-stemmed acaulescent plants called the rosette plants, like your Sagittaria can be rosette. And so this is kind of how I think on aquatic plants. If you're a wetland biologist and you're doing wetland delineation, then the federal government tells you to classify aquatic plants this way. Obligate wetlands occur almost always greater than 99% in natural conditions in wetlands. Facultative wetland, facultative 50-50 or so. Then you have your facultative upland and upland species. Administrative ecology, that's all that is. Again, if you're an ecologist, like I am, you care about where the plants, or the hydrology that the plants are living under. So palustrine plants, this is, so this is your water velocity, 0 feet per second, 1 foot per second, 3 foot per second. That's pretty fast when you get to 3 feet per second. Your palustrine plants are your marsh plants. These are plants that don't like moving water at all. They like to be in a stagnant little pond, growing happily, usually floating plants. They don't like floods. So if you get a flood, they're gone because they have no adaptations to moving water. Your lacustrine plants are kind of have a wider tolerance to water velocity and hydrology. These can grow from your oxbow, your kind of backwater oxbow lakes, and almost to slower streams and rivers. And then your riverine plants are growing in really fast water, and those things have specific adaptations to allow them to grow in fast moving water. So other classifications, macrophyte. You hear this a lot. Big plant, hydrophytes, water loving, halophytes, your coastal plants, salt tolerant. Amphibious, those are ones that can grow under the water and on the surface of the water. And heterophilous means they produce multiple leaf shapes. So this is Ludwigia repens. I have a specimen right up here growing under the water and San Marcos Springs, where it's all nice and red. Then you have it growing emergent, where it's nice and green. Now, if you were to identify that plant, you would, if you're an amateur, you would say, oh, that's two different species. No, that's the exact same species. Hence why it's so difficult and many people give up. So I talked about drought tolerance in aquatic plants. This is the spot on the Nueces River. This is the spot like the next year. And what did I find? There they are, still growing, the little nymphoides. They have nice bulbous tubers. They burrow down in the clay soil and they just hang out there. And they can go through a drought for at least a couple of summers. Leaf variability is pretty common in aquatic plants. So we call that heterophyly or heterophilous. And you'll see this in rainforest plants where shade plants will get big leaves and then in the sun they'll get small leaves. But aquatic plants take it to a whole nother realm. So this is all, these are all vouchers of Sagittaria latifolia with all the different leaf shapes of the species. So that's why you don't rely on usually vegetative characteristics to identify aquatic plants. You have to have a seed or a flower or some other system, which complicates it because when they're in water, a lot of times they don't flower or seed out. So you're just like, oh no. I brought bags and bags of aquatic plants home and stuck them in my pond because I didn't know what they were, hoping they would flower finally. Sometimes it works. Okay, so to wrap this up and get it into some perspective, we'll talk about Texas natives in the landscape. You go to any home improvement store, you're very rarely going to find a native aquatic plant. If you do find a native aquatic species, it's probably grown in Florida or California and it's shipped here. So it's not native Texas genetics by any stretch of the imagination. And so what you do is you buy a bunch of kiddie pools and you go around and you collect your cool things and grow them out. This is for a restoration project I was doing. None of the stuff I was using on the restoration project I could find to buy, nor did I trust that they were going to be local if I could find them. And it was fun. I mean, if you're a plant person, you want to grow stuff. So that's how I got around that problem. I always like to go out and collect. This is a little ditch out by Luling. It's full of water and had tons of stuff. There's probably 10 different species of aquatic plants in that little ditch right there. So how do you grow them? So aquatic plants do not like potting soil. If it's black clay or red clay, the better. So a lot of people curse black clay, but for aquatics, they love it. And a lot of people, I think, their specialty on the containers doesn't matter. Just put them in a pot with holes. I like to use the wide pans. What do they call them? Bulb pans. The big wide bulb pans. I like to use those, especially for water lilies. And if you don't have room for a pond, buy a cowboy pond. Cowboy swimming pools are the thing right now, so let's make cowboy ponds a swimming thing. I think these are becoming very popular. Michael Eason has included a lot of these in his landscapes out in West Texas. Very easy, and you can get a lot of cool little plants growing, a lot of diversity in this one little tub, and very easy to clean out and maintain. Okay, so let's identify. How are we doing on time? 15 minutes, all right, perfect. So I wanted to provide context because I know that was all context and background because I know a lot of people just don't really have the background for aquatics. So now we're going to identify some. And identifying, I mean, we spent a whole day the other day identifying aquatic plants. So this is just a little snippet. But most of these are things you'll see within the local area. So again, back to the classification and how we're going to classify these. Our submersed plants are plants that live completely underwater. They might flower, they might send up a little spike to flower, but their leaves, their stems will never really leave the water. So if they go dry, they're done. So we have a subset of submersed plants called amphibious plants, just like the Sagittaria right here. So Sagittaria platyphylla, you have your immersed plant and your submersed form, same species, and this is in what we call an amphibious plant. Then you have your floating leaved and floating plants, so your water lilies, your azolla, and then you have your what most people are more familiar with, your emergent plants. So your Pondidaria, your pickerweed, other Sagittarias, cattails, things like that. So southern water nymph. This is an annual. A lot of people call it guppy grass. We'll have some. There's a little bit of right over here. Annual world leaves. You can get it. You can get it confused with multiple species, but how you tell compared to other leafy small aquatics is the recurved leaves along the stem. Recurved like that, and usually they'll be whorled. They'll be whorled around the stem. So this is an annual great waterfowl food. Great waterfowl food. The duck hunters really like this one. You'll see it pretty much everywhere. I've seen it in little pools. You can walk down to the river right here. There's probably some. So pretty common. Our duck potatoes. These plants right here. Sagittaria platyphylla. So there are 5 species of Sagittarias, I believe, in Texas. Sagittaria platyphylla is the only one that will grow completely submersed in this form. So if you go to San Marcos or Comal, you'll see this. Under the water, you may see this along the edge. Variable leaved milfoil, we have a little bit right here. If you go down to the river right here, river's covered in it. Nice bright red stems. We have 4 species of milfoil, I think. Oh, it's on the side. 4 species of milfoil. This is the most common in Texas. You'll find this in the Devil's River all the way to Houston, all the way up to Dallas. Very widespread. Generally likes rivers, sometimes ponds and springs. So the native milfoil can be confused with one of our non-native milfoils. This is very, very minimal. And this is what we call doppelgangers, when 2 plant species look alike, so you have a problem identifying them. But our non-native Myriophyllum spicatum Eurasian milfoil has very long internodes between the leaf whorls, whereas our native milfoil has very short internodes between the leaf whorls, so that it looks like it's just one continuous line of leaves. So spicatum you'll see pretty commonly around here, and so those 2 are probably the most common ones that you will run across. So that's how you identify those. 2-leaved again. Oh yeah, it has the emergent flower spike, and Eurasian just puts up a little flower spike just on the surface of the water. So again, you kind of need to have them blooming to get a really good identification. Red Ludwigia, have some over here. Gorgeous plant. This is the one we showed you where it was red underwater and it was green at the surface of the water. Spreading, we call it water primrose, pretty common in springs and small streams. Our pondweeds, very common in our central Texas creeks and streams. We have one member, the American pondweed, Pumageton nodosus. Pumageton illinoensis, or Illinois pondweed, is completely submerged. It has very translucent leaves. So, whereas the American pondweed will have floating leaves, and the leaves will be very thick and kind of rubbery. So you identify the pondweeds by their leaf form and then their flowering form. So if they're not flowering and you have two grassy type forms of pondweed, good luck. You can send them off to get them genetically tested, which is what I do, but they're kind of difficult. Did anybody know we had a native carnivorous plant around here? Yeah. So Utricularia gibba is our bladderwort, and this is really the only bladderwort you'll find, I'd say, west of the Trinity Basin or so. Most of our other bladderworts in Texas will be far east Texas, maybe central Texas. So this one actually likes alkaline water, very common in their hill country streams and springs. Nice little flower, yellow flower, produces long mats in really shallow water. And these little dark things are the little traps. So that's where it catches its food. So it'll be blooming right now. So if you're out along the river and you see little yellow flowers, then that's Utricularia. It'll catch copepods, amphipods, very, very tiny little things. This is one of my favorites, American water willow, bass grass. This is one of the plants that we like to plant for restoration. Very easy to grow, very tolerant of a wide variety of habitats. Very common. I mean, the river right down here is just chock full of it. Very pretty bloom, very easy to grow. Our polygonums and our persicarias, these are our smartweeds. These are really important, especially this time of year because they're blooming and they're really great for pollinators when a lot of things are kind of dormant. Terrestrial plants are dormant. They're very, very heavily visited by bees. You can get like smartweed honey. So they're a great pollinator and something if you're really looking to have a pond for habitat, this would be a good one. So we call these we call this group the knotweeds. At the node will usually be kind of a knot, kind of be a swollen area of tissue. Your rumex, if you know what rumex is, docks, those are all knotweeds. They'll have knotty nodes. Naughty notes. Sound like a band. All right. Again, this is another one of my favorites, beggar's tick, Spidens laevis. It is not too showy right now. It's only thinking about blooming, but again, this is a great one for your pollinators at this time of the year. A lot of things are dormant or dried out. Gosh, when this thing goes off, it is gorgeous. You'll see it right now. It'll have red stems and kind of reddish. You can see the red stems there. That's kind of how you can tell it right now. It should be in bud. So if you want to go look for it, now would be a good time. Creeping spot flower, Hecmella. This is another little daisy you'll see kind of growing around the edges of wetlands and rivers. Good low growing plant. I use it a lot for stream bank stabilization. Lucias, anybody know these? Pretty common. Marsh, fleabanes, sweet scents, I think is the other common name. Bacopa. I have some Bacopa in a bag if you want to see it, but another very common, low growing Scrophulariaceae family. This is another amphibious plant. It can grow in our deep water springs. It can grow completely submerged, and it will look pretty different. It will. So hydrocotyl or dollar weeds. We have 3 species. I'm not going to go into identifying those. If you want to, come to my class. But super common. We have 2 species that are really common in this localized area. Emery sedge, great plant for stream bank stabilization. It is like concrete for stream banks. And here is a colony on the Llano that was just clinging on to that cliffside, and that cliff is not going anywhere anytime soon. So we really underestimate our sedges. A lot of people just dismiss them. So the bulrushes. So this is genus Schoenoplectus. Pretty distinctive when you look at their stem. They're not very distinctive when you just look at them from a distance. You have to really do a cross section. 3 square, has a triangular stem. Don't ask me why it's called 3 square, but that's why we don't like common names, right? It doesn't make sense. But triangular stem with that cross section. Our soft stem bulrush has a highly aurynchomous stem, which means it's very bendy, hence the name soft stem. I'm trying to think of the technical term. Aurynchomous is a good technical term, but anyway, it's very easy to bend the stem, very pliable, I guess, and a circular cross section. And then our California bulrush, very stiff stem, kind of darker green, and has a kind of a angular shape at the top, at the top half of the plant. So at the bottom will be round. At the top, it'll turn into this kind of angular structure. So again, gotta love identifying plants. You gotta aquatic plants. Gotta go in the weeds sometimes. All right, we're almost done. Okay, a couple more. So here's my babies, my water lilies. So Texas, believe it or not, we have 4 native water lilies. I finally have all 4 wild collected, Texas genetics, native grown. Our white water lily, you'll see in East Texas, sometimes down along the coast as far as maybe Matagorda, but it is not like our alkaline waters anywhere close to the hill country, North Texas. It is a East Texas plant. Our blue water lily, which is in the tropical water lily group, South Texas playas, you'll get it in some ephemeral wetlands. This one has a woody form about the size of a walnut that can go dormant for decades. It'll just sit in the soil and wait for the playa to fill back up. When I say playa, I'm talking about South Texas playas, not North Texas, not the Panhandle. But South Texas playas, it'll sit there in the soil for decades till we get a hurricane. Those ponds will fill up, and then you'll see. You saw my entry slide. That was all. We'll go back to it. That was all at a playa in South Texas. Banana lily, or Mexican water lily, is one, as I said, that I talked about how we think that we have aquatic plants that we think are very common, and then we go back and try and find them, and they kind of blinked out because our habitat has been lost. This is one that when I started looking for, everybody's like, oh yeah, I saw that here and I saw that there. And I would go to that spot, it would be paved over, or it'd be a cotton field. So we finally found a site. Hopefully a couple more sites are in the future. So actually very rare in Texas now. And then spider dock. The banana water lily will only be in RGB, Rio Grande Valley. Doesn't make it much further north than that. And a spider dock is the most common water lily you'll see in Texas. And it is our riverine water lily. It likes rivers. flowing water, fast flowing water, and you'll see it in ponds occasionally. It is in a different genus than the others. It's in genus Nupar. The bloom stays closed, has sepals. What you see yellow are actually sepals. The petals are actually inside, has a different structure, bloom structure, separates it out from the other water lilies. All right, and I think that's it. So this is our other native fern, Marsilia. So yeah, okay, that's it. That's all I got. So thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Casey. For those of you that are attending online, we're going to go ahead and end the online meeting.